Welcome back, troops. Let's tab 59. Just finishing off, getting back towards the house. The wind's playing up somewhat chronic today, guys, so what I'm going to do is do this video just inside the house. So thanks for stopping by, troops. It's very much appreciated. Thank you for your continued support and subscriptions. Those that are subscribing, thank you. Those that haven't, please consider it. Guys, keep the comments coming. I'll try and answer. Let's get indoors here. I'll try and answer. I'm out of breath. I'm trying to answer all the comments I can, as you know. It's very much appreciated. They put a big smile on my face. Okay, so let's just stand you down here. Bear with me, troops, bear with me. Proper preparation and planning and all that. Right, here we go. So, let's take this off. So today's video, as the title suggests, is about this, or these. So this is an infantry officer's sword. This particular one is mine, and it's a replica one. It's not the real McCoy. We'll talk about the real ones in a minute. But this is quite a good example. It's a replica. It's quite a good replica, actually. And this was given to me on my promotion to W01. The British Army, W01s, certainly in the infantry anyway, carry a sword for ceremonial reasons. Now, I've never carried this on ceremonials. I've only ever used it when I've done Guard of Honour for a friend's wedding, and I organised the Guard of Honour and drew the sword out and give them a salute as they come out of the church. So the other thing it's been used for a couple of times is people have used it to cut their wedding cakes with. When it's been a military style wedding, I've lent them the sword and they've used it to cut the old cake. And it's been used for a couple of birthday cakes as well for a veteran mate of mine who I know's out there watching, Mike Jones, Royal Regiment of Wales. Anyway, so I say this is a replica one. It's given to me on promotion in 1999 by the Trace Around, and never really been used. So a couple of points on this one, because it is very similar looking to the real McCoy. See, it's a straight bladed sword, engraved on both sides down the hilt, and on the basket here, you might just better pick that up. It's got the royal cipher of Her late Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. So obviously now swords will be having the cipher of King Charles III. So his cipher will go on the basket there. The handle itself, you can see this black material here. This is normally shark skin or skate skin, and the silver wire is German silver wire that binds the skin onto the handle. So that's just my replica one, which I've never really used. W01s do draw their sword. They certainly carry them on ceremonial parades, but there is occasions when a W01 will draw his sword, and that's only, I believe, I'm right in saying this, any guardsmen out of there will pick me up, I believe the W01s draw their sword for trooping the colour. You might see it on the TV when the guards do their trooping the colour at Buckingham Palace. You'll see that the RSM's there with his pay stick under his arm. He's got his sword by his side. A stick bearer will come from behind and withdraw his pay stick from under his arm and hold that, so that allows the RSM then to draw his sword for trooping the colour. But apart from that, it's not really drawn very often. Now, the actual sword, the real McCoy, is the pattern 1897 Infantry Officers Sword. And that's been going obviously since then. It's made by a couple of companies. One of them's out in Germany, and the other company's in the UK. I believe it's down in Poole. That's where they're housed. So they were carried into battle right up until the First World War. Now, I don't know if there's any occasions when British officers carried their swords after the First World War. There may have been, I don't know. But certainly, I'm no historian, but certainly in the First World War, they were carried. Now, in June 1915, during the First World War, an army order was issued that officers would no longer carry their swords into battle. For obvious reasons, because if an enemy, the Germans or the Turks, whoever it was, they saw the British troops advancing towards them across no man's land, and there's one guy wielding his sword or pointing his sword towards the enemy, it's pretty obvious to the enemy that that guy was an officer, and of course they were absolute prime targets for the enemy. So the order came out in June 1915, do not carry your swords in battle. In June 1916, however, there was at least one sword carried on the first day of the Battle of the Somme. Somebody carried one into battle, went against the army order. Another famous sword carrying person was Bernard Montgomery, later to become Field Marshal Montgomery. Obviously, he was our wartime leader in the Second World War. Now, he carried his sword on a counter-offensive in October of 1914. His actual sword, the one he carried that day in 1914 in the First World War, is now on display in the Imperial War Museum in London. So if you ever go down to the Imperial War Museum in London, have a scout around there. If you haven't been, it's well worth going. I think it's still free to get in. And somewhere in there, I've not seen it yet, I'm going to go down there soon, I might even do a video. But somewhere down there on display is Bernard Montgomery, Field Marshal Montgomery's sword from his days in the First World War. I believe he was a platoon commander. Another interesting fact about the infantry sword, I can't talk for the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty similar. Up until 2004, so not that long ago, 20 years ago, up until 20 years ago, on court-martials, the escort to the accused would come into the court carrying swords. They escorted him and they would carry a sword. I've never been on a court-martial, never been present to one, but if any of you out there either been on a court-martial or been involved in a court-martial as an escort or whatever, may remember that prior to 2004 or up until 2004. So they were carried. Also, if you were a commissioned officer on a court-martial as the accused, when you came in, obviously in front of you is a judge advocate, and he would have a board, which is basically the jury. The board would be made up of between 3 and 7 officers, commissioned officers or warrant officers. They act as a jury. The accused, if he was a commissioned officer or she was a commissioned officer, would come in and they would lay their sword on the table in front of the judge advocate and the board. So I suppose that's a symbol of surrendering his sword in front of them before the court-martial commences. So, a little bit of history. Like I say, I'm no historian. There's plenty out there. I'm sure you can have a look if you want to look at the subject in further. And I'm sure there's people out there watching this that may have experience of using swords a lot more than I ever have. But just a short video on that. As I said before, troops, thanks so much for subscribing and the comments. I promise you, I look back through, I try and reply to all of them I can. Put your name on there so I know who I'm talking to if you want to, and I'll get back to you and give you a shout out. So, till the next time, troops, let's tap.